This is TWiT.
Oh, let's talk about the modem, because that's probably the source of most of the new rumors, including the iPhone Air, which everybody acts as if like, oh, that's a given. They're going to definitely do that next year.
I don't know. I guess it depends on whether you think that they're going to be making it as a separate product and a separate SKU and a separate name with a separate product line, or whether they're just thinking of ways that, gee, because we've got all these hardware changes that no one has even rumored about yet, we are actually going to be able to make them thinner. And because people who get access to this information only has part of the story, they think, ooh, there's something called the iPhone Air that's going to be really, really making a lot of news in 2026, 2027. I like the idea of like having a new kind of fashion, for lack of a better word, iPhone, because when you make, I disdain making things thinner for the sake of it, but the phone is the one area where if you take 1 millimeter off of it, it is shocking how much smaller it feels in the hand.
Okay, because we're talking a couple of millimeters at best.
Right, exactly. 2 millimeters, they're saying. And the other thing is that if they are interested in making a folding phone, they're going to have to figure out a way how to make that phone thinner. So maybe this is just laying the groundwork for here's the boards and here's the chips we're going to be using if we decide that making a folding phone is ever a good thing.
Maybe it's not the iPhone Air. Maybe it's the iPhone Bend. Is that what you're saying?
Ooh, and they get Ben Kinsley to promote it.
Interesting
Sir Ben.
idea.
Yeah, I do know someone who had a folding Samsung, and
I have one. Yeah,
they now have an iPhone.
I bought the first and second fold. I have the flip. Let me go get it.
They used it every day, and then they didn't.
I think Andy is right that the path to building a folding phone, you have to learn how to get everything miniaturized and thinner and all that. And they've got that slot that with the Mini and the Plus has obviously not sold to their satisfaction. So they want to try something else in there. And so differentiating based on fashion, feel, making it feel thin and light, and you give up some camera for it. Maybe that is more. I would actually probably guess that it is going to differentiate that phone way more than just saying it is slightly larger or it is slightly smaller.
They won't say it's the thinnest phone we've ever made. It will be actually a separate SKU.
I think it'll actually be impossibly
separate
thin.
line.
I think when we think about the superlative,
this is the flip, and this is exactly what you're talking about. Because, by the way, this is the form factor I prefer to the Fold. I don't think Apple will do this because it's just a standard size folding phone. But you see how thick it becomes,
right? So they got to get that. They got to get that dimension as thin as possible if they're gonna fold it over.
I think it's not having the wrinkle on that screen, which we could see when you opened it. That's the real thing.
Also important.
That's what they should be thinking about. Honestly, I agree with that.
Every time I see that, I'm like,
if I get the light right.
I think it depends. Like on that style of phone, we're just taking a standard phone and just making it smaller inside your pocket by folding it lengthwise. I think that is a serious thing. When it comes to like the idea of I want an iPhone that turns into a de facto iPad Mini, I've used those kind of folds before, and the first day you can't help but notice it. The second day onward, you just don't notice it at all. It's sort of like remember when phones had a big forehead and chin, and it's like, oh my god, look at all this screen, and then it's not an issue like after 3 or 4 hours.
You know what I don't get used to is that in order to make these foldable, they have to use a different material for maybe this is just a Samsung thing, but this is a little rubbery, and I don't like it compared to glass. But now if you use a screen protector already, maybe you won't feel bad about that. I don't like screen protectors.
A lot of the screen protectors are either glass or glass-like. I mean, I do hope that if they're going towards an Air, I'm hoping that the Pros go the other direction. So they give us thicker, heavier, bigger cameras, bigger stuff. Like that would be the.
It's already sort of happening, right?
It is happening, but I think that creating a thin one gives them more license to go towards a more pro one. One that I put in a backpack, like a big phone.
And also, I don't think it's a bad idea for Apple to, again, they can't have they can't go back to the Mac world of 1993 where they had 100 different kinds of Macs and no one knew which ones was which. But I think they could. There is room for them having let's experiment with doing a line of phones that is not necessarily the high performance phone and not the budget phone, but this is like the fashionable, nice looking phone that it doesn't have the greatest camera, it doesn't have the greatest specs at all, but it looks really, really good. Because internationally, we forget that the iPhone is not marginal, but it's an aspirational product. It's not the phone that necessarily everybody wants. So anything they could do to have an edge to do the things that no Android phone can do, which is usually look like $1,000 million damn bucks, that might get people to save instead of buying this Samsung or this OnePlus or this whatever, I will buy an Apple phone because I just want this thing in my hand.
This whole conversation began with Mark Gurman's and others, Bloomberg report that Apple plans a 3-year modem rollout in bid to top Qualcomm company. So this is Apple, and we know they've wanted to do this forever, to replace the third-party modem chips they have in there with some of their own making. Won't necessarily save them a lot of money. I think they probably still have to license at least GSM from Qualcomm.
Yeah, but it would give them a lot more freedom with, again, developing everything they want.
Making it skinnier is the big one, I guess.
One of the most interesting things from this report was that this is going to be responsible for knocking another millimeter or two off the thickness of the thing. And
more than half a decade in the making, Apple's in-house modem system, Gurman writes, will debut next spring. So obviously, that's not the regular iPhone. Next spring is going to be an SE.
That's
right?
An SE. It starts with the SE, right? Which is low stakes.
Yeah, He says because it will not be as fast as Qualcomm's modem initially, so putting it in the SE makes kind of sense until they get it to that performance level.
And then and so the idea there is that there are places this can go, but it can go in the SE, it can go in that thin phone. The idea there is these are phones that are not expected to be the highest possible for performance, right? It allows Apple to test this out, although apparently, first they send people around and test them, but nothing beats testing in the real world, right? So they're going to do that.
Millions of gamma testers is really useful.
Yeah, so that'll be good, but it'll be, again, like remember when they had 2 different modems in the iPhone and people were like, some iPhones are faster than others and you're paying premium for an iPhone and you might not have gotten the fastest data. They don't want that to happen. So you put it in an SE, you put it in a model that is all about compromise in order to get it thinner. You try it out. That's a good shakedown cruise for you. I was struck in Gurman's report. I didn't quite realize this, but Gurman says Qualcomm receives more than 20% of its revenue from Apple. And obviously some of that is going to be patent licenses if Apple makes their own 5G modem because they have the patents there. But clearly Apple is also an enormous customer of Qualcomm. And Qualcomm, I mean, if we've all been following this, right? Qualcomm has been telling its shareholders and warning that a major customer will probably transition away from them eventually for a while now. I mean, the good news is it's taken them 5 years and they still haven't done it. So, but once this starts, it will, if Apple can continue and ultimately go through what Gurman says, multiple chip generations to get to the point where they're at parity, and then maybe they can even succeed in, if not best in Qualcomm, getting benefits by integrating the chips. That will be a big hit for Qualcomm because the patents are great and all, but like having them buy your chips is better, and they're going to lose that potentially. Yeah,
Qualcomm does, however, have a big brand new customer in Microsoft, which is using its Snapdragon Elite chips in their Windows on ARM. And it's not just Microsoft, it's all the other PC makers. And I'm sure that they're hoping that will... It's never going to reach the numbers, though, that iPhone reaches, is it?
Has anything happened with the ARM lawsuit and cancellation of Qualcomm's license? I mean, is that gone anywhere? Because that's a really... You combine what Jason just said and ARM's attack on that could get complicated for Qualcomm.
Yeah, no kidding, because everything they make is an ARM chip.
Right.
I think that's just it's a lawsuit, but I think it's a negotiation ploy to get more money out of Qualcomm. Let me just check and see.
They are going to court this month,
I guess? December.
Yeah, they're going to court this month. The one that doesn't necessarily fit inside of court is that evidently there's a part of the contract that says that either one can cancel the contract, which is what ARM did.
Yeah, ARM issued a 60-day notice informing Qualcomm that ARM would cancel its license to use the ARM architecture. That was, let's see, this story came out last month, a month ago, exactly. So that's interesting. If they really did do that, that means there's one more month.
Right.
So Qualcomm did back down on
this is a negotiation tactic, but it's in the contract. Like gets really hard to get out of, so. Yeah.
I think this is all. I think we can assume it's all negotiation.
And this all comes back to Apple because this is all over the licensing related to the team that left Apple and went to Qualcomm. Qualcomm bought, right? So this is
Nuvia,
Nuvia. This is related to when Nuvia was purchased. ARM said that they should renegotiate the contract, and Qualcomm said no, the contract's the same. ARM said it would be different if it was you than Nuvia.
Right.
And so
right.
And
I'm sure in these contracts it says if there's an acquisition, we have to renegotiate, and that's usually what's the case. So Gurman writes, Apple's modems have been a long time coming. This is the kind of sad saga of it. When the company set out to build the chip, it originally hoped to bring it to market as early as 5 years ago. To jumpstart the effort, the company invested billions of dollars to set up testing and engineering labs around the world. It spent $1 billion to acquire, you may remember this, Intel's Modem group.
Yeah.
Millions more hiring engineers from other silicon companies. Setback after setback. The prototypes are too large, ran too hot, weren't sufficiently power efficient. So they've apparently adjusted.
Is this revenge, or is this like they're like, are we just getting back at Qualcomm because we don't like them, or are we benefiting from this? But I think Johnny Srouji, who heads their chip group, felt like this was important because they could ultimately not only build their own, but presumably eventually integrate it into the rest of their silicon. Which they
imagine
know
if you could put it into the system on a chip, into the
exactly.
series,
Although it does not speak well. I mean, this has been a rough couple of weeks for Intel. But one of the things Gurman reports is that one of the things they did after they bought Intel's business and they worked on it for a while was start hiring people from Qualcomm, right? Like that the Intel
they weren't so
team
hot.
was not so hot, which I mean, we'll just take him at his word. I'm not surprised that they went, and this is a whole setup especially in San Diego where they're just like hiring
I'd love to read the book about this. Gurman writes, but after adjusting development practices, reorganizing management, and as you say, hiring scores of new engineers from Qualcomm, Apple is now confident its modem will work.
And this is one of the big advantages.
This changes a lot. This changes everything. Go ahead.
This is one of the big advantages for companies in California, both advantage and disadvantages, that there's no non-competes. So you can't, you can just freely steal each other's employees
There were going to be no non-competes nationally, but the courts threw out President Biden's.
Yeah. But here in California, it's a pretty big deal.
It's been the law for a long time.
Yeah, it's huge. And
actually, it's been the law since I remember this back when I was making contracts with Tech TV. They tried to insert that in my contract, saying I couldn't go to work for another failing cable company, and
not enforceable.
It wasn't enforceable.
I definitely have had friends who couldn't work in the same business for months, right? Because they're in a state that is not as enlightened as California in this case. But I think, look. I think all of us have talked about this a lot and said you don't discount Qualcomm and the value of their years of experience all over the world dealing with other carriers and different regulatory regimes and different frequencies and different, like one of the things this chip's not going to do is millimeter wave, right? Which is a frequency that is used some places but not other places. But the flip side of that is I don't think you should ever bet against Johnny Srouji and Apple's chip team, right? Like if there is a single best part of the last 10 years of Apple, it's the chip team. Like they have killed it. And so if they're building this, I mean, not saying it's a guarantee that they won't mess it up, but I would not bet against them.
Yeah, also, it sounds like if these rumors are true, it sounds like a really smart play in the way they were to do it. Because there's going to be a heartbreak period the first time they try to manufacture these things at scale. So no, the last thing they want to do is put it in an iPhone where they sell at those numbers. There's also going to be, there's no way you can test a brand new modem like that until you get truly millions and millions of people worldwide using it in every single situation. This isn't about the 99%. This is about the 1% for whom your new modem fails. And and you can't just simply wipe that away. So, oh, well, that's just an edge case. No, that's a case of someone who's getting basically dial-up modem speeds on a phone that they spent a lot of money for. So the first round is going to be a bunch of beta testers. But to put it into a product where there's going to be lesser expectations is a good play. Lower sales, also a really good play, and will also give them the experience they need to adapt this for all the other pieces of tech that they want to put it into. Because another part of that story has been that, look, if Apple is really, as Jason says, I mean, they really are about let's put everything on the die. Let's basically not just have our own chip, but also we can also integrate and package all these components the way we wanted to. Has that ever been like one of the biggest stumbling blocks in finally having a Mac that has a built-in modem? All these other things hopefully will be opened up once Apple has the ability to not just buy a chip off the shelf and somehow shoe it into whatever the RF profile of this device is, whatever the power and heat profile is of it, but design it exactly for this specific MacBook Air. We could finally get something that I've been wanting for at least 8 years now.